If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description.
Even if I run from the plague, I cannot abandon the pots I made. I have spent my whole life crafting pottery, so I have no regrets. Even if this place collapses, I will die while baking pots.
Go pots. Go pots. Go pots.
Solateria piqued my interest with its beautiful hand-drawn art style, but my excitement quickly faded the moment I saw it. Stylish, parry-based combat. My aging millennial brain just cannot keep up with parry-heavy games. But gosh darn it, whenever one comes out, I gotta try it because even though I'm trash at parries, I cannot deny how good it feels to pull them off. And so, I've slowly been building a tolerance to parry-based combat, and I'm glad I did, because had I stayed in my anti-parry bubble, I would have missed out on 9 Souls, one of my favorite Metroidvanias of all time. So, I pulled up my big boy pants and tried out Solateria. How did that go? Surprisingly well. I found Solateria's parries to be much more difficult to pull off than 9 Souls', but I was able to hold my own pretty well. At least up to the mid-game. Regardless of how many times these bosses were handing me my ass, I was always having a blast. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What is Solateria even about? You play as Tot, a tiny Pyron warrior who wakes up with no memories. The only thing he can recall is a voice urging him to find his missing king, the world's last hope against the Shadow Plague, a disease that's nearly wiped out the denizens of Solateria. A civilization on the brink of collapse is one of my favorite setups, but does this fiery adventure have what it takes to light up my soul, or will its flame fizzle out under the stress of its difficult combat? As we dig into this review, you'll realize Solateria brings plenty to the table beyond its demanding combat. Even so, combat is the heart of the experience, and the game lives or dies by how strong that heart beats. Thankfully, Solateria's heart is in excellent shape. Its combat pumps with precision and power. Let's start with the parries because there's a lot to go over. Tot starts with a shield that can block a portion of incoming damage. But if you raise that shield at the precise moment an attack would land, you'll do a parry. And parries can eventually lend themselves to a strong counterattack. See these diamonds under my enemy's health bar? That's their poise. Every successful parry reduces these diamonds by 1, and when they're all gone, you'll get this satisfying slow-mo effect that indicates it's time for a counter. Press the counter button and boom! Massive damage ensues. It's a classic example of risk-reward combined with a type of build-up mechanic that makes finally hitting that counter feel oh so good. You can also stagger bosses simply by beating the crap out of them. I don't recall there being a meter you have to fill to put a boss in this state. Just keep hitting them until you get this satisfying slow-mo effect and then follow up with the counter button or a heat skill. Heat skills are special moves you can pull off if you have any section of this icon glowing blue. This icon starts full and only refills at altars, this game's save stations. Heat skills range from a special AoE attack to altered forms of counters that do incredible damage. Speaking of counters, Tot has a charged attack that, if timed right when an enemy attacks, stops their attack, deals damage, removes a stagger diamond, and allows you to do a slow-mo counter if your counter depletes their diamonds. It feels incredible whenever you pull it off. As you can see, there are plenty of different types of parries you can pull off depending on the scenario. There's even a parry where Tot throws out this green mist or whatever. I never connected with it because I got it so late in the game that at that point, I wasn't about to learn the timing of a new parry. I was still struggling with the parries I'd been using the entire game. But of course, parrying isn't the only thing Tot can do. He can also attack. He has a ground combo, an aerial attack, and he gets a few more attacks as you progress, like a ground pound and this 3-punch combo. Attacking feels just as satisfying as parrying because Tot feels so great to control, and you can throw out a parry mid-combo, which is big for me. If parrying requires you to stand perfectly still to pull off, it PMO. Parrying that allows you to stay aggressive is the only way to go in my book, so Solateria passes in that regard. Now, time for the main course, the bosses. I found the game's bosses to be very difficult. I did pretty well against the first boss, which is essentially the tutorial, so that's to be expected, but once I hit the second boss, I rode the struggle bus until the end credits. This game's bosses are no joke. Some can be downright relentless, to the point that parrying to burst down their poise is the only reliable damage you can do. Many of the mid to late game bosses will punish you for playing too aggressively and demand mastery over the parrying mechanic if you want to be victorious, which is perfectly fine given the game's emphasis on parry-based combat. And would you be surprised if I said this game was a Soulsvania? There's stamina management, a healing item that recharges at save stations, and a dodge with iframes. There's also corpse running and some boss runbacks, but not too many. Most major bosses have an altar right outside their boss room. Anyway, being that the game's a Soulsvania, does it shock you that it's hard? Probably not. I will say the stamina meter is relatively generous. Attacking, parrying, and jumping do not expend stamina. Only dodges and blocks need stamina. But once that stamina's gone, you're a sitting duck. And though attacking doesn't cost stamina, it does halt its recovery, so stamina management during boss fights is crucial. Now, I know talking up the game's challenge is a double-edged sword. To some, that kind of challenge is what they crave in their Metroidvanias and action games. But others hear all that and will check out. To those thinking of skipping Solateria due to its difficulty, you may want to reconsider after you hear about its difficulty options. There are 4 options, essentially normal, hard, easy, and super easy. And difficulty can be tweaked at any time, so if you find a particular boss too difficult, switch things over to an easier difficulty, take out the boss, then switch back if you want. The super easy option turns your blocks into parries, allowing players to burst down poise without the need for precision timing. Does this ruin the experience? I guess it could for some, but I will never get upset with difficulty options. If removing the timing needed to pull off parries sounds awful to you, don't switch to the super easy difficulty, and you'll be fine. Trust me when I say the normal difficulty is going to be plenty difficult for you. And that's it for combat. Solateria's combat asks a lot of you, but it gives you just as much back. Between its layered parry system, satisfying counters, and demanding boss design, the game builds an action loop that feels tense, technical, and deeply rewarding. And with flexible difficulty options that let players tailor the challenge without undermining the core experience, Solateria opens its doors to far more people than its Soulsvania label might suggest. If you're willing to learn its rhythms or adjust them when needed, you'll find a combat system that hits hard, feels great, and stays engaging all the way through.
Oops.
Hey, it's the Metroidvania Guru coming to you live from my office with no soundproofing or proper lighting and a crappy microphone. I come to you in this awful state because I forgot to talk about one of the most important mechanics in the game, residual heat. I'll throw its explanation up on the screen, but if you've played Nine Souls, the mechanic should sound familiar. It's very similar to internal bleeding. In Solateria, blocking an attack as opposed to parrying it results in you losing some warmth or HP. But, see this little gray portion? You can actually gain that warmth back by parrying. Kinda dumb, I forgot to mention it earlier. Anyway, back to the review.
Abilities, platforming.
I'm gonna be real with you. Solateria's abilities in platforming are its weakest link. Not because they're bad, Tot feels great to control and the moment-to-moment movement is perfectly solid, but because the game clearly isn't interested in challenging platforming. And that might be a smart move given how demanding the combat already is. Still, as a platforming guy myself, I can't pretend I wasn't a little disappointed. The issue isn't mechanics, it's level design. Solataria's layouts are what I call boxy. Lots of flat surfaces, straight and perpendicular lines, and simple slopes that don't do much to create interesting movement puzzles or traversal moments. The environments themselves are gorgeous, but the actual platforming structures are pretty basic, and that simplicity gives the world a slightly sterile feel. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but if you come to Metroidvanias for clever platforming challenges, Solateria isn't aiming for that lane. Most of the platforming highlights you see in the trailer represent the bulk of what the game offers. There just isn't much beyond that. And even those moments lean less on traditional timing and precision and more on tech, where you chain together traversal-friendly attacks to cross big gaps or navigate thorny tunnels. These sections are fine, and they're rare enough that they never become frustrating, but they're also not especially satisfying. Pressing 5 or 6 different buttons in a strict sequence has never been my favorite kind of platforming, and Solateria leans on that style more than I'd like. And the biome gimmicks aren't especially clever. You get the usual suspects: bouncy mushrooms, water hazards, switches, elevators. They work, but they're nothing you haven't seen before. The one standout for me was the dark energy orbs that shoot towards you when you get too close. Those actually created some tense moments, especially during combat. Outside of that though, the biomes don't lean very hard into unique mechanics. Puzzles are just as light. Most of them are simple navigation gates, walls you can only break from one side, hidden breakable walls, the occasional false wall. There are a few side quests with mild puzzle solving, but nothing here is going to melt your brain. You'll mostly be circling around obstacles and grabbing key items to open doors. And that's gonna be it for this section. Solataria's platforming and environmental tricks get the job done, but they rarely elevate the experience. The movement feels great and the world looks fantastic, yet the layouts, gimmicks, and puzzles mostly stick to simple, familiar ideas that don't ask much of the player. Outside of a few standout moments, like those dark energy orbs, the game leans on basic structures, light navigation gates, and occasional tech-based traversal sequences rather than true platforming challenges. It's all serviceable and never frustrating, but if you're hoping for inventive traversal or clever puzzle design, Solateria keeps things pretty modest.
Progression.
I don't think I sing the praises of great progression systems enough, so let me be very clear. Progression is a huge part of what makes Metroidvanias so addictive. Feeling your character get stronger, watching the numbers climb in the status screen, that little dopamine hit when you level up. Call me a rat, but those constant rewards make it really hard for me to step away from this Skinner box. Thanks to its Soulsvania roots, Solateria is absolutely loaded with progression systems. You level up, pump points into 8 different stats, cook food to boost those stats, equip gear to boost them even more, then upgrade your gear to boost them even more. You can even improve your stats to increase your stats. Okay, that last one might need some explaining. See this wheel with the tablets? This is your core. Each tablet on the wheel represents a stat or a bundle of stats, and every level up gives you a point to slot into one of these tablets. Straightforward enough, but do you see these tablet add-ons? These modifiers enhance the tablet itself, making every point you've already invested more impactful and sometimes even unlocking new abilities. Then there's the Worm Horn. The Worm Horn is Solateria's version of an Estus flask. You can increase its charges by bringing specific materials to this lady. You can even upgrade that little blue icon up top by visiting the librarian. There's a light crafting system here that makes every visit to the game's hub area exciting, and it adds just enough extra texture to make progression feel constant and that much more rewarding. Most of these upgrades cost own, Solateria's currency, and collecting it is surprisingly satisfying. Own bursts out of enemies in these little explosions, and scooping it up just scratches that part of the brain that loves shiny rewards. It's the little things in life that make us happy. You'll spend that own in the mini shops scattered across the world. They sell parts, your gear, crafting materials, ingredients, lore snippets, and even hints that point you toward important areas or items. Prices can look steep at first, but own drops are generous. I never had to farm for anything I actually needed. I ended up with nearly 500,000 owned by the end of the game because I just didn't have anything else I wanted to buy or improve. Side quests pop up here and there, either from NPCs or as tablets and scrolls you can buy. Some side quests play out like quest lines where you meet the same character multiple times, and quest line rewards range from world building to gaining a helper for a very tough boss fight. Others simply reveal the location of a hidden item or secret area. And that's it for progression. Solateria's progression hits that perfect loop of constant rewards and steady power growth, and it never stops feeding you something to chase. Between the core and its tablets, warm horn upgrades, cooking, crafting, gear improvements, and the generous shower of own, the game always gives you a reason to poke around one more corner or visit the hub one more time. Even the side quests and shop hints fold neatly into that sense of momentum. It all adds up to a progression system that's dense, satisfying, and always nudging you forward. Exactly the kind of Skinner box hit that makes a Metroidvania hard to put down.
Exploration.
I may have ragged on Solateria's bog standard level design earlier, but I'm a huge fan of its world design. Pretty early on, the land of Solateria opens up and lets you wander into some fun, and sometimes downright punishing, non-linearity. In my first 2 hours, I stumbled into 2 bosses that absolutely wrecked me, forcing me to nope out and try different paths. And I love that. Bosses acting as hard gates to guide players to try other routes is peak Metroidvania design, in my humble opinion. I'm pretty sure at least one of those bosses could be beaten early if you're skilled enough, which means you could grab later game goodies way earlier than intended. That's the kind of stuff MV dreams are made of. And that non-linearity means everyone's playthrough is going to look different. Biomes connect in all sorts of surprising ways, and I kept finding entrances from angles I never expected. It had my brain spinning with replay ideas. What if I came in from this side first? Would that make this boss easier? Or would taking this route sooner make things harder? I'm a firm believer that Metroidvanias are meant to be replayed, and Solateria builds a world that practically begs you to dive back in just to see how much faster and smarter you can route things. I think I made it pretty clear in the progression section that exploration is rewarding in a very tangible way with all the things you can discover to improve your character. But Solateria also has plenty of world events you can trigger that make exploring feel dynamic. I won't spoil them, but needing to activate certain events to progress in other biomes gives the world a sense of life and cause and effect that I really appreciate. Another thing that makes Solateria's world feel organic is how biomes aren't treated like isolated levels. You'll revisit areas after triggering an event or picking up a key item or ability, and suddenly a place you thought you'd finished opens up even more. That loop of returning, unlocking, and digging deeper is supremely satisfying. It makes backtracking feel less of a chore and more like exciting little excursions, something that separates the good Metroidvanias from the great ones. The in-game map is fantastic, both visually and functionally. Area sizes are accurate, small details litter the map as helpful reference points, biomes are color-coded, and points of interest like save points and unclaimed items get logged automatically. Hovering over a biome even shows its completion percentage. And on top of all that, you get, no joke, like 100 custom pins to mark whatever you want. The only thing that can make it better is a mini-map option, but that's just a personal preference. And since Solateria is huge, we're talking an enormous map and a 20+ hour runtime, great fast travel is essential. Thankfully, the game nails it. Every altar or save station doubles as a fast travel point, and you can warp straight to the library, the game's hub, just by holding a button. That makes it incredibly easy to check in with NPCs, upgrade your stats and equipment, or hop to an altar you've unlocked. When it comes to fast travel, I have no notes. And that'll do it for exploration. Solateria's exploration shines because the world constantly invites you to push, poke, and reroute your way through it. The non-linear layout, the surprising biome connections, the occasional event-driven progression, and the way areas reopen after key discoveries all work together to make the world feel alive and reactive. Pair that with a stellar map, generous fast travel, and plenty of meaningful rewards tucked in every corner, and you get a Metroidvania that makes wandering off the beaten path feel exciting rather than obligatory. It's exploration that respects your curiosity and pays it back every time you indulge it.
Atmosphere, narrative.
I love Solateria's hand-drawn environments and characters. The character designs especially are just adorable. There are several races in Solateria, each with this fire creature motif mixed with some kind of animal, or sometimes they're just blobs with eyes and hair. They're weird, they're cute, and they look great. The music is spot on. Nothing jumped out as an instant banger, but every track fits its biome perfectly or amps up the tension during boss fights. A lot of the soundtrack has a distinct Asian flavor, no doubt influenced by the devs being from South Korea. The sound design, though, is a highlight. The pings and twangs you get from landing a clean parry can give you goosebumps, especially when you're chaining them together. As for the narrative, Solateria uses a mix of yap and assigned reading. NPCs aren't overly talky, but they can be if you choose the extra dialogue options. And the assigned reading from scrolls, tablets, and resident memories you find add a ton of world building and lore to dig through if digging through item descriptions is your thing. The story itself is solid. There are some cliches and tropes here, and a revelation you'll see coming from a mile away, and a revelation you won't see coming even though it was expertly foreshadowed. Obviously, I'm being vague to avoid spoilers, but I'd say, overall, I enjoyed Solateria's world building and plot. And the path to the true ending is great. It's logical, interesting, and extremely easy to follow since the game literally marks the required locations on your map if you choose a specific option in an NPC's dialogue. Normally, I'd roll my eyes at such hand-holding, but with a map this massive, I welcomed it. Blindly backtracking through 15 hours of content at the end game isn't very appetizing. And that's it for this section. Solateria's atmosphere and narrative come together to create a world that's easy to sink into. The hand-drawn art and charming character designs give the world personality, the soundtrack and sound design reinforce every mood and moment, and the mix of NPC dialogue and item-based lore builds a story that's familiar in places but still delivers some genuinely satisfying reveals and narrative. Even the true ending path feels thoughtfully handled, guiding you just enough without turning late-game exploration into a slog. Taken together, it's a cohesive, inviting world that's fun to look at, fun to listen to, and fun to unravel.
Final thoughts and score.
Solateria is a fiercely satisfying Metroidvania with some of the most intense, rewarding combat in the genre. Its parry-driven combat is the clear standout. Tense, technical, and deeply rewarding once you settle into its rhythm. And the generous progression systems and non-linear world design keep that momentum going. Even when the platforming and environmental gimmicks fall short, the game's atmosphere, art direction, and sense of discovery make exploring Solateria consistently engaging. It's a game that challenges you, rewards you, and invites you to keep digging deeper. I award Solateria a 9 out of 10. Solateria is available on PC. I played the game exclusively on the Steam Deck with 0 issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
Solateria lands in that sweet spot where its strengths easily outweigh its shortcomings, delivering a combat-driven Metroidvania that feels both demanding and deeply rewarding. Its parry-centric battles, addictive progression systems, and smart world design give it a level of depth and momentum that makes its 20-hour runtime feel like 10. While its platforming and environmental gimmicks never quite rise to the same level, the overall experience is polished, memorable, and absolutely worth recommending to fans of the genre. Solateria finds its king in the A tier. What more can I say? Solateria is anher MV banger for 2026. Run, don't walk to this future Metroidvania classic, because this adventure is straight fire.